So this week is like an equilibrium in the valley as a whole. This is where buyer seller market is flat across the board when it comes to the valley as a whole. So looking at the Cromford reports, the stats that we're always looking at, it basically looks at it through the eyes of a seller, right? When they have their Cromford index. Their Cromford index over 100 is a seller's market, under 100 is a buyer's market. In certain areas like Chandler, which is still at the top of the heap for sellers markets, the market index is a 168, which is down 14% from last month, which is a lot, but it's still at the top of the heap, right? On the bottom is Buckeye. Buckeye is at a 61.3. It's down 2% from last month. So we're seeing this trend down. It's a big trend down right now. But there are still areas in the valley that are sellers markets, and there are, of course, those that are buyers markets, which, again, is creating that 100 equilibrium, which we are at now, which is interesting because we haven't been there in a long time. Demand, we did see pickup here in the last couple of weeks from a personal perspective. So we saw a few of our listings went on market, went off market. A few of them sold immediately, which is interesting. Those that we have managed, that we're taking and then selling, depending on condition, is how long it's going to take to sell. At almost any price point, whether it's $200,000 or $600,000 or $1 million, depending on the condition and how much a buyer is going to have to put into it, or an investor, is the most important, and how much you have to discount those. I saw two instances this week that reminded me of the 2007, 2008 market when it came to buyers. Unfortunately, we had a buyer fall out of escrow on one of our listings. And this is a listing that we have from OfferPad. We're listing one of the properties for them. And the property ended up, the buyer's agent reached out, and basically it was the letter you never want to get in the email that's basically like, mistakes were made, and such a bummer. To no fault of this agent, it's just one of those where the buyer ended up paying off their school loans, right? The lender let them know, hey, don't make any purchases, right? Don't buy anything. Don't put any money on your credit cards. Don't pay off your credit cards. Like, once they run your credit, everything's got to be a particular way. And they're looking at debt to income ratios. They're looking at all these different things that are going to affect the person's ability to repay. And in this case, it was probably that they needed that cash in order to buy this property. Instead, they paid off their student loans, which, as you can imagine, for a buyer, how cool would that be? Pay off your student loans. I remember when that happened. Pay off my student loans. Yeah, I feel flipping great. And in this case, son of a gun, now that person's lost the opportunity to buy a house. So yeah, I wonder what that looked like. That was probably not a fun situation for them. What a bummer. Second time it happened was I saw it sitting on the other side. Again, Rachel, my amazing wife, is in the lending side of things. And it came down to the agent in a transaction. This was not one of our transactions. But it just reminded me how important it is that the agent and the lender are in communication, especially in a market like this where there's so much change, so much volatility, so much happening, and everybody's got to know what's really going on. Like, I can't pretend to know what's going on the finance side every day because I just don't. Like, that's not my job. I know from a 10,000 foot view what's happening. Every week I hear about it, of course, but I don't know how to make sense of what real restrictions are in there. So in this particular case that I saw, it was somebody trying to get in escrow and not having the conversation with the lender. And in this case, as I've been saying, y'all, like, the lender is the hardest part in this process is the financing. Structuring the deals correctly is the most important piece. When you're selling a house or when you're buying a house, you find, from a seller's perspective, you realize, like, oh, buyers can't qualify in some situations to buy a property that you have on the market for sale unless they get all of these terms met. And that's just the way that it is. Unfortunately, they might not have the money. They might not have the they're coming with maybe the minimal down payment, or maybe they're coming with more down payment, but how the deal is structured from the front end is important, because if somebody needs the closing costs or could potentially need them, negotiating that stuff on the front end is super important. Getting through inspections or waiting until later in the transaction to then spring that up doesn't help anybody, and that's where deals can go sideways. So again, just communication in the transactions, communication between all parties involved, and making sure that, hey, if there are multiple entities that are vested in a transaction, from a lender to call it a 1031 exchange person, to a title person, to a sales agent or a buyer's agent, making sure that they're all on the same page is absolutely paramount to having the most successful outcome. If they're not in alignment, or they don't know what one person is doing or the other one is doing, it could really negatively impact a transaction or the whole experience as a whole, right? When we'd worked with, we've worked with a lot of lenders in the past, and I always used to joke with agents, and it's like, at the end of the day, no matter how good of an experience we've offered somebody when it comes to buying, selling, managing their property, it's always that one person in the transaction that could make that experience just completely poor for the consumer, for our clients. And that, of course, is a reflection on us, whether we like it or not. But yeah, I think in this market right now, we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of challenge. This August 1st is when commissions are no longer going to be allowed to be shown in the MLS, which is going to change a lot. What it's going to change, not quite sure yet, but I know that we're staying the course. I know on the rental side, we're doing our best to make sure that outside brokers know that we're still paying a commission on that side as well, because again, this is affecting everything on the MLS. I'll keep you posted. It's going to be an interesting August. But again, everyone here is busy. Everyone here is positive, grinding, getting it done, dealing with the things that we are. I got to give a shout out to our guy AJ. That guy's getting more positive reviews than anybody I've ever seen, which is awesome. Check him out on Google if you don't believe me. Cool. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well. I hope you're not too hot, and I'll talk to you next week. See ya.